Good evening, Kindred. Voivod Maquette here. Welcome back to our World of Darkness, where tonight we're going to do something a little different. Tonight, we are going to discuss Clan Tzimisce. I plan on having a little discussion with you about all the clans, at least the major ones. So settle back, pour yourself a glass of something red, and let's discuss the fiends. The first time I attended a Vampire the Masquerade game, the first vampire clan I saw in the book was Clan Tzimisce, and I read their description about sorcerers who control spirits from crumbling castles on mountaintops, and I was hooked. They had, pun intended, gotten under my skin after reading just the description in Laws of the Night. When 5th edition came out, I was concerned because they were left out. The story was that the Sabbat had gone east to fight the elders of the Camarilla in the Gehenna War, that they may not come back. I was concerned, but the World of Darkness did not disappoint, because not long ago they gave us this. The rumor mill had been turning for quite some time about how we were going to be seeing the Tzimisce among the Ravno and Salubri eventually, but how they were going to handle their signature power of vicissitude was troubling them. I think they did a good job. And I know that I seem to be one of those people who just celebrates everything that the World of Darkness puts out. That may be true for the most part, but I do have some things that I am not too happy about. But Clan Tzimisce is definitely not one of those things, and that's what I plan on talking about here tonight. So, where to begin? Those of you who are familiar with Vampire the Masquerade will know that Clan Tzimisce, the fiends, as we once called them, they were just another Sabbat clan. The Sword of Cain was a terrifying boogeyman. When the rules for Vampire first came out, the idea of anybody playing as Tzimisce, let alone a Lasombra, was unheard of. They were the things in the back. They were the things in the dark that the monsters were afraid of, but eventually, most likely due to the cry of fans wanting to have more information and wanting to represent them in their games, White Wolf at the time gave it to us. Maybe that's what happened around here too. But the Tzimisce have gone through a change. The Sword of Cain has collapsed. The Manus Nigrum is now gone. The Black Hand, the many names for the Sabbat. So where does that leave them? In my opinion, the same place they've always been. They don't care. The Tzimisce may have been the spiritual backbone of the Sabbat, but I don't think it had anything to do with actual devotion or caring for the Sabbat. They're out for themselves. They owned the Sabbat, and that was it. And that's really all Tzimisce wants, is to own something. It doesn't even have to be nice. They just have to utterly control it. Where the Lasombra were running around pointing packs and death squads in one direction or another, the true devotion of those packs went to the fiends. So, what did White Wolf, or, pardon me, what did the World of Darkness do to the Tzimisce to bring them back? To make them capable of existing outside of a world where the Sabbat is? Well, truthfully, they didn't have to do much. I played Tzimisce for years, and the Sabbat were a necessity, not a privilege. I had my own things I wanted to do. The Tzimisce had their own things that they want to do. So, what has changed? Disciplines. Disciplines have changed. The powers, the very thing that makes a vampire more than just a risen hoping to feed off human existence. The Tzimisce still have animalism, and by White Wolves, I'm going to keep calling them that for a long time, by the World of Darkness's own records, animalism. Some Tzimisce cultivate animalism as an extension of their oneness with their domains. Others see it as a tool, the better to command hosts of lesser beasts in order to claim those domains. In any case, Tzimisce have long felt an affinity with the more bestial denizens of their ancestral lands. Tzimisce still have animalism. Dominate. That's a change. As far as I can remember, Tzimisce have always had aspects. Even the old clan Tzimisce had aspects. Dominate is something that has bled over from the old clan. The perfect discipline for enforcing one's edicts through sheer mental force. Dominate not only helps the dragons seize the object of their obsession, but also conditions long-term servitors into extensions of the fiend's unquestionable will. I've heard fans, critics, I should say, of the World of Darkness say the reason why vicissitude was so important to the Tzimisce was because they didn't have dominate, that they would force themselves using their power of flesh crafting, because they didn't have the ability to domineer like the Lasombra or the Ventru. That may be true. But what did the World of Darkness do to vicissitude? Because the new edict, the new way things are going, there are no clan-specific disciplines. All disciplines are shared between a couple of clans. That being said, the Tzimisce are now net masters of Protean, which V20 touched on. The old clan Tzimisce being such a favored branch when it came to the way certain characters preferred to play, but the old clan don't leave Eastern Europe. They stay in the Carpathian Mountains. So the old clan gave us the Carpathians, younger Tzimisce, members of the old clan, who not only had their aspects dominate in animalism, but also had the option of learning Protean. That is interesting. The clan of Shapers getting Protean. It makes a lot of sense, too. What World of Darkness says is, as masters of their own physical form, the Tzimisces use protean to force themselves into shapes, especially those associated with many of the ancestral lands of the old clan, such as the bat and wolf. Beyond these traditional kindred guises, many Tzimisce practice the methods of vicissitude, which allows them to transcend the rote forms of protean and treat their own bodies as those of the subject as primordial clay. Treat their own bodies and those of their subjects as primordial clay. That's poetic. But what does it mean? Well, if you go into it, which a little later we shall, the Tzimisce use their dominate powers to dominate their very own beasts. Using the protean discipline, instead of just changing into wolf and bat, which is common for any vampire who gets their hands on the shaping powers, they dominate their own flesh. That's why the Tzimisce have dominate. It's kind of inspirational the way that the World of Darkness decided to write that in there. And fitting. And for those of you who feel that a Tzimisce is not a Tzimisce unless it has aspects, which I completely understand in some respects, predator types are a thing in V5. In the Vampire 5th edition, we now have predator types. The ability to go, my monster feeds in this fashion, and since he feeds in this fashion, his disciplines have formed in this manner, and that is genius, the way that they've done that. I kind of wish more predator types would have been added in the companion. Now, years of playing Tzimisce, the Tzimisce have always had that one flaw. They must sleep within at least two handfuls of their native soil. Watching Bram Stoker's Dracula, or reading Bram Stoker's Dracula, has always given us that picture of Vlad the Impaler, of Count Dracula, lying in a pile of his own of soil, of his gypsy servants, shoveling cratefuls of Carpathian soil to be shipped off to England. The new Bane, the V5 equivalent to Clan Flaws, brings that to a whole new level. And what I mean by that is what they say. The Tzimisce are grounded. Each Tzimisce must choose a specific charge, a physical domain, a group of people, an organization, or even something more esoteric, but clearly defined and limited. The kindred must spend their days sleep, surrounded by their chosen charge. Historically, this has often meant slumbering in the soil of their land, but it can also mean being surrounded by that which they tonight rule. A certain kind of people, a building deeply tied to their obsession, a local counterculture, a local counterculture faction, or other more outlandish elements. If they do not, they sustain aggravated willpower damage equal to their bane severity upon waking the following night. That's so much better than just being able to carry a bag of dirt in your pocket. This bane is truly a bane. You can become completely and utterly screwed. But it matches the dragon's hoarding. Because the World of Darkness is highly leaning in on the dragon aspects. Going into that, there is covetedness, which is their compulsion. When the beast, that inner monster inside of every vampire, comes to the surface, and makes them truly what their clan founder was. The Tzimisce are covetedness. When a Tzimisce suffers a compulsion, the kindred becomes obsessed with possessing something in the scene, desiring to add it to their proverbial hoard. This can be anything from objects to pieces of property to an actual person. Any action not taken towards this purpose incurs a 2 dice penalty. The compulsion persists until ownership is established. The storyteller decides what constitutes as ownership in the case of a non-object, or the object of desire becomes unattainable. Snatchers. I played a Tzimisce for 5 years. I have a tattoo because he was so important to me. Friends of mine, we were all sitting down and discussing the new compulsion for Clan Tzimisce and the Bane for Clan Tzimisce. And I had pointed out that I had been playing that out already my entire time playing Marcus. You see, every year. And I really should have thought about that differently due to the fact that Marcus was very old. But every year, Marcus would find a bride. Classic Dracula needing a bride. He would stalk them, kidnap them, transform them into his children, and then bury them alive beneath his floorboards. He was a twisted individual, but my compulsion, my bane, was my brides. And it's nice to see that like things I was doing already in game have I understood a level of the Tzimisce that was not actually in the mechanics but now is, and due to my liking of the clan, that is special to me. Now, the World of Darkness gives us several archetypes because we don't have the hoardy sorcerers anymore. Not really. We don't have the Sabbat priests and the cardinals and the warriors and stuff like we used to when we had Clan Tzimisce. But what they have now are things like landlord. Tell me that doesn't make sense. The Tzimisce word of rulership, of leading, voivode, which is where my name comes from here, Voivode Maquette. Voivode means landholder. It means landlord. Gang leader. Any Sabbat pack ductus, now that the Sabbat has disbanded, is going to have to find a place for themselves. And a gang leader is definitely something you can do to build your own army, to have your horde. Compulsion to gain territory. It makes sense. Grudge bearer. Tzimisce claiming domains. Could you imagine if you were a Tzimisce, the Sabbat falls apart, and then the Camarilla comes in and just sets up camp? Did you know that the Camarilla is now holding court in Mexico City? That was the heart of the Sabbat. Fiorenza, the Ventru, is now the Prince of Mexico City. I see some grudges in Mexico. Then they also say the Special Forces Commandant. Possessed not of a traditional land domain, The Special Forces Commandant has instead a nigh fanatical respect for their unit and their soldiers, and would follow them into hell itself. That sounds like a Tzimisce. Now, they give us nice rules here for servitor ghouls, Schlachter, and Vost. And it's nice to see them completely not eradicated from the world of darkness. It's refreshing that the darkness still looms in the shadows. Now, they were nice to give us Dominator's Favor, which is a new level 2 Dominate. The way that the World of Darkness in 5th edition handled Demontation is disappointing. We get to Malkavian, so I'm sure we'll touch on that. But level 2 Dominate in the core book is Demontation. My character Marcus, his sire was the Little Tailor of Prague, and if you look at the Jihad card, the Eternal Struggle playing card where I got the character from, he's also in the Fall of Atlanta clan sagas. But if you see, he did have Demontation. He was terrifying for it. But Dominator's Favor screams Tzimisce. I can see Venture having this too, but level 2 Dominator's Favor. Kindred are creatures of cruel irony, and the name of this discipline's power is one such example. While conditioned with Dominator's Favor, a thrall with a blood bond to the vampire finds it much more difficult to act against their master. Domineering Tzimisce are especially fond of this power, using it to ensure the loyalty of their servants. They don't care if you like them. They just want to own you. I will be opening Dominator's Favor up to everyone who wants it, not just for Clan Tzimisce. I don't think it should be. Now, Vicissitude. The power of the Shapers, the thing that makes people go, there's a Tzimisce here. How did the World of Darkness handle it? Well, I think they handled it quite damn well. If you don't agree with me, I'm glad that everyone is allowed to have their own opinions. Vicissitude is literally the amalgamation of Dominate and Protean. It is a Protean discipline where you have to have at least the 2nd level of Dominate to dominate your own beast into taking the shape you want it to. You are in that much control. That's all the Tzimisce would ever want. Now, I'm not going to go over the mechanics or anything, but what the description is. Rare outside Clan Tzimisce, the power allows the vampire to demand obedience of their own flesh. Skin, muscles, and even bone can be sculpted or warped out of shape, and the end result sometimes unnervingly beautiful, but just as often monstrous. That's amazing. That's the clan in a sentence. Unnervingly beautiful, but just as often monstrous. Skilled users can craft bizarre characteristics or reshape their entire bodies, though larger transformations exact a heavy toll on their physique. Kindred who use Vicissitude create everything from useful body tools to expressive ornamentations. This is the first 3 levels of vicissitude on yourself, all wrapped up into one power called vicissitude. This is changeling or malleable visage, depending on your edition, fleshcraft, and bonecraft, all wrapped up into one pretty little picture. Now, a level 3 Protean, which you have to have the second level of Dominate for, is flesh crafting. Prerequisite vicissitude. You have to be able to handle your own before you can do this. Extending their mastery over flesh, the vampire is now able to inflict the ministrations on the bodies of others. The power is rightly feared, as many of its users have a reputation for inhuman torture, though some employ it to great effect to enhance and adapt their servants and allies. You can now use all of vicissitude on others. This is the creation of Schlachta, of guardian ghouls, changing them around to be what you need them to be. Their physical attributes are yours to redistribute. Level 4, Protean. Horrid form. You must have at least 2 points of Dominate to ride this ride. Prerequisite, vicissitude. If you don't plan on using vicissitude on other people, you don't have to. You can buy a regular level of Protean. You could buy feral claws, feral weapons. You could buy Shape of the Beast and turn into wolves and bats. But horrid form. With a mastery of the body so complete that it surpasses natural limitation, the vampire can take on truly monstrous form, complete with vicious claws, protruding fangs, rigid features, and corded muscles. Although its exact Although its exact traits can vary between occasions, the form often has an individual specific appearance that manifests every time its powers is used. A version of the user's beast made flesh. Some look like hellishly malformed animals. Some look demonic or atavistic. And some defy any sense of worldly familiarity. Many incorporate the traits of other vampires in nature, such as leeches, bats, ticks, mosquitoes, magnified to grotesque proportions. A little history lesson. Back when the World of Darkness was White Wolf Publishing, they released 2 books based on an Alien franchise. They took Ridley Scott's Alien and brought that into the World of Darkness. I've noticed over the years of playing that each vampire clan has a connection with something else outside of itself. Clan Gangrel is connected to Werewolf the Apocalypse. Prove me wrong. Clan Tremere is Mage. They're from the Order of Hermes. Setites are mummies. The Ministry. It could be argued that the Banu Hakim are connected to Hunter. the Giovanni or the Hekata, as they are called now, among their other necromantic practitioners, are connected to Wraith. It is under my belief that the Tzimisce were originally meant to be what happens when an alien life form infects a Tzimisce. Now, I never went with that in my own chronicles. Was never that much of a fan. I always considered vicissitude to actually be a physical manifestation of the deal with Cupola, a way of flesh in Khaldunism, if you will. So, whenever they described a Tzimisce going into horde form, I would always think of the xenomorphs from Alien. This allows so much more imagination, and I'm very, very excited about that. Now, we have one more level of Protean, but it's not Dominate connected. This one is one with the land, and it is amalgam of Animalism 2. And you have to at least have Earthmeld to have this. This is an entire way of Khaldunism as a discipline. One level. One with the land is the way of spirit. Amalgam, Animalism 2, prerequisite Earthmeld. The kindred possesses such mastery over their own form that they may extend it even into their domain itself. Not only may the vampire sink into the very earth, they maintain a preternatural awareness of events transpiring within their domain. The distance of a mile that they earth meld into. They literally just spread themselves so thin that they become aware of everything that's going around. That is Khaldunic sorcery. I caught myself saying it. Khaldunic sorcery. You should never call it Khaldunic sorcery. Khaldunism is sorcery. Therefore, if you say Khaldunic sorcery, you're literally just saying sorcery. You sound ridiculous. Now, the companion gave us something nice. Are we going to use it? I sure as hell am. There's no doubt in my mind that angry Tzimisce would join the Anarch movement. But are the Anarch movement going to accept their help? Player characters Tzimisce are going to find it very difficult to find allies. That's for damn sure. I do find it quite likely that some of the Tzimisce would in fact follow their brethren of the La Sombra into the Camarilla. That being said, I don't see it as a way of joining in to help. I see it more of a, how can we throw a wrench in the workings of whatever the La Sombra are trying to do now. Because if the Sabbat did fall, it's obviously the La Sombra's fault. After all, they're the ones who accepted their deal. But why would a coterie allow a Tzimisce to join? How do you justify allowing one of the fiends, one of the dragons, into your group of kindred, into your like-minded kindred? There is one benefit that they are allowing, and that is Tzimisce are an intimidating force for any social group, in no small part due to their demeanor. Most dragons would regard the coterie as theirs as much as they would consider an estate or house their own. Whether when claiming 6 blocks as their own, inviolate domain, or executing a takeover of a mortal Zebetsu. Relating to the world outpacing them can pose a significant hindrance. A Tzimisce may, for instance, see little wrong with controlling the minds of a score of mortals, and may even believe that this is an act of subtlety, on account of having left no bodies in their wake. Of course, the social dynamics of most coteries operate on a far less versatile model. But even so, many kindred may see a value in feeding the Tzimisce's ego. Individual vampires of Tzimisce frequently consider themselves the most important of all kindred, and though they may observe delicate and fraught hospitalities as a courtesy to their fellows, this is often somewhat obviously facade. Dragons can nurse grudges against other Tzimisce with enough vitriol to put a Toreador's vendetta to shame. More often, Tzimisce join coteries with members of other clans, even though the voivodes may presume a certain superiority to their colleagues. This does not preclude affection. As peculiar a form as it may take, the Tzimisce perspective is broad, and they may view coterie matters as fellows, rivals, compatriots, attendants, or even vassals under their care. For some dragons, coteries are a source of status among the hoarded, cultivated, and ultimately used as a badge of honor. This anachronistic perspective affords value to the recognition and prestige of having an entourage and ultimately being responsible for them, as an old world lord might. The coteries themselves have every reason to count Tzimisce among them. After all, being part of the Tzimisce's cadre means that you are under their protection, as the custom of hospitality, or the notion of ownership, demands. For coteries of an especially strong stomach, the powers that a Tzimisce can wield are often enough to support claim of territory. With their affinity for manipulating corporeal forms, the Tzimisce is often equally capable in the horrid form as an ascetic virtuoso, reshaping coterie mates into paragons of physical beauty. So what does that mean? Well, they've invented coterie merits. And where it might seem understandable that a Tzimisce might want to weasel their way into a coterie does have a reason for wanting to have a Tzimisce with them. One of those probably being, if the Tzimisce is in the group, they're probably not going to kill you. But, for 2 points, the Old World Hospitality Clan Coterie Merit can be on a Tzimisce's sheet. 2 points. Enter freely and of your own free will. Dracula. Enter freely and of your own free will. At the beginning of a session, any member of the coterie who stayed at the Tzimisce's haven when the previous session concluded restores an additional superficial willpower damage. You gain your sense of self back. That's inspiring. So, where is the Tzimisce's place in the new form of the World of Darkness? Ultimately, it's wherever you decide to put it. I have personally always thought that Tzimisce made better independence than they did Sabbat, because the Tzimisce don't care about the Sabbat. I played as Tzimisce. I had a good time doing it. I was the ductus of a pack. I became bishop of a city. I became voivode of the southeastern United States. I didn't care. I wanted to be left alone to my projects. I think that's most fiends. The dragons want to collect. Just keep in mind that they don't care about how nice it is. They don't care about how comfortable their subjects are. They want to own. It can burn in hell for all they care, as long as they own it. So, that's what the World of Darkness has given us. Voivodes. Landholders. Fiends. I couldn't be happier with it. I'd like to thank the World of Darkness team for the care and elegance that they put into the work of Clan Tzimisce. And that being said, from our World of Darkness, I am Voivode Maquette. Thank you for joining me with this talk. And perhaps another clan will be coming soon. Good evening.